everyone, I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. All right, everybody, welcome to the Melissa Made Show. Now, if you've been watching my social media, you've been seeing me kind of gush about this guest. It's a really big deal to me. It's funny, I found this guest from my friend Mike Karpenko, who is very big in the fitness space as well. And he said, you really should start following this guy. And so I did. And I'm going to apologize now, because if you live under a rock and you by chance don't know who this gentleman is, and you start listening to his podcasts, you're going to binge listen. Every time you see me doing my walks every single morning, Sal is in my ear. I have learned so much from him. And then I went and I bought his book, the Resistance Training Revolution book, which wish I had it in my hands here, was such a huge game changer for me. And one of the reasons I really want to have him on the show is because him and his partners do such a good job of simplifying things for people, giving you the tough love that you need to hear. And it's just really in my whole, I guess the last 3 years that I've really been trying to improve my own strength. He has been pivotal in this. So let me give him a little bit of introduction. Sal Di Stefano, that's a little tricky for me to say, is a personal trainer, co-founder of Mind Body Media, and co-host of Mind Pump. He's an online radio show podcast that is dedicated to providing honest, tough love, fitness, and health information. He's also the designer of the MAP system, and that stands for Muscular Adaptation Programming System. And Sal, I took complete advantage of buying every single one of those during your Black Friday sale. So I have them. They're absolutely incredible. He was drawn to fitness at the young age of 14 and has had such a huge influence on his life that he became an entrepreneur in this space at the age of 22. And so if you don't know, which I'm sure you do, Sal is here to talk to us today. Mostly for me, obviously, my audience is, Sal is mostly women. I am 49 years old myself. And so, a little bit of the more mature woman and, exercising and health and fitness. And I just have a million questions for you, but I would love to start with just knowing why you guys came up, and it's really big behind your head, with the name Mind Pump.
Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it, Melissa. We wanted, obviously, all of our experience and expertise was in fitness. Okay, so myself and my co-hosts, Adam and Justin, were trainers, gym owners, managers, fitness entrepreneurs. And we wanted to do a podcast that talked about fitness and health, but we also didn't want to necessarily pigeonhole ourselves only to fitness and health, because one thing that we learned as trainers, training people for 2 decades, was that health really encompasses so much. It's not just about exercise. It's not just about diet. It also encompasses things like spirituality. It encompasses your health with your finances, family life. And we also knew that we learned to be successful as trainers was also teaching clients or showing clients how to have fun and how to entertain them in their workouts, because they had to show up and create a good relationship with exercise. So Mind Pump, it sounds fitnessy, but it's not so fitnessy that, we're only going to talk about fitness. So when you listen to our podcast, the podcast is organized around what we found to work when we worked with clients. So when we work with clients, when you meet with your clients and you train people 2 or 3 days a week for years and years and years, you find that you talk about fitness sometimes, but other times you talk about other things, because they're not, if they were fitness fanatics, they'd be trainers themselves. Right. And you want to have a good time. You want to learn. You want to grow together. You want to understand each other. You want to talk about things like family and current events, and then of course, fitness and nutrition. And so the show is a blend of entertainment, current events, but the main driver is health and fitness. So we, again, we wanted a name that would kind of encompass all of that. And so we came up with Mind Pump.
And I, you guys have such good banter back and forth. I that's one of the things I really appreciate is that there's never dead air space. I mean, you guys always have something to share and something to say. And what I really love is the fact that you don't agree on everything. Sometimes you will respectfully disagree. 99% of, I think, what you guys, believe in together, but there's always that 1% that it's like, I kind of disagree. I think it was a podcast I was watching the other day, and the three of you were talking about how this is kind of an unusual podcast for you because you're telling people how to see visible results in 30 days. And, you guys each had your own way of doing that. And I loved how you kept saying, you guys have to understand this isn't, this is not typical for us. We usually try to teach sustainability and long-term success. Yeah. And this is kind of short-term, but those 10 things were really, really impressive to me. And I appreciate doing those kind of things as well.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that episode up, because one of the challenges, if you are in the health and fitness space and you're trying to do it from a point of integrity. So if, I'll take a step back. People who become coaches and trainers don't do it for the money. There's not a lot of money in training people and coaching people. They do it because they have a deep passion for helping people through fitness. They have a passion for fitness. They have a passion for people. And so they want to help people. And so that's where we started. That's what we did for a long time. We were able to find success doing it because we did a good job. But when we went into the media space, which is ultimately what our podcast is, we wanted to do it through integrity, but we were competing with bad messaging. We were competing with a lot of the lies that the fitness industry puts out, lose 30 pounds in 30 days by taking this pill, or new workout, shred your body, beat yourself up type program, or, you name it, right? Just so much misinformation, so much lies, but it's packaged and sold in ways that's so alluring that removes the challenge out of it, in the sense that, really to make lifelong sustainable changes with fitness and health, it takes a long time. It's a hard, long journey. The journey actually never ends. It's a process of learning and growth that really never stops, because you never change, right? You get older, things change in your life. And so we're trying to compete with people selling, the wrong message that's very alluring. And so sometimes we'll put out episodes that will bring people in. Yeah. Now that we have you, we're here to tell you that trying to lose as much weight as you can in 30 days is probably not a good idea. Here's some stuff you can do, and here's how to do it in a sustainable way. So it's kind of a reverse bait and switch, I guess, where we're trying to attract people. We're trying to use the tricks that the quote unquote bad people use to get people's attention. But then we're trying to communicate the good stuff better than they communicate the bad stuff. So, and it's been really challenging. It's been slow, but we think it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that episode. So me wanting to, I want to be able in this episode for I have obviously listeners that have been working out and lifting for decades. And then I still have ones that probably are just still real hesitant about exercising at all. So starting with those people. In fact, I wanted to show you, Sal, I have, I don't know if you can see it on my phone. I have a notes in my phone called Sal Quotes. Because awesome. Sometimes you say the coolest things. And I'm like, you got to write that down, because it's those kind of things that you put on your refrigerator wall and stuff. And this one kind of pertains to it. I think you speak so well to the person that, even uses the verbiage, I hate working out, or I don't love fitness. How do you help those people who have that mindset of, I just don't like to work out? Where do you start with them?
Yeah, well, the only people that love working out work in the fitness industry. So to be quite clear,
true.
Fitness, if you really love it, I mean, it's going to be easy for you. Okay. And you'll probably want to work in it, and you'll probably want to use it to help people or whatever. So that's great. That's great. But that's such a small percentage of everybody. Everybody else, the goal is to use fitness to improve the quality of their life. So it's a tool. It's this really incredible tool that you can use. And if you use it properly, there isn't a facet of your life that it won't improve. It obviously will improve your health. I don't think that's debatable.
Yeah.
It improves your mental health. In fact, I just read an article yesterday, I talked about on the podcast, where they're now talking about exercise as a potential first-line treatment for depression and anxiety. They're finding these huge meta-analysis studies that exercise is as effective or more effective than talk therapy or medications in dealing with depression and anxiety. And I would argue more, because the benefits of exercise continue to grow, whereas with medications, you tend to get things like receptor downregulation and it stops working and I need to try something else type of deal. So health, mental and physical. It also teaches you how to be a better person. Why? That sounds so funny and silly and maybe esoteric, but when you pursue exercise, you're going to suck at a lot of things. You're going to struggle. Things are going to be a challenge, and you have to learn how to deal with those things. You have to learn how to not be good and practice and get better. You develop a relationship with pain that is appropriate. What do I mean by that? Well, like yourself, you've been working out for a long time. You feel as much pain or more pain in a workout as a beginner, but you don't have the same relationship to pain as they do. They might not have a good relationship with pain. So they may exercise like, oh my God, I can't tolerate this exercise. It's so hard. It burns so much. Whereas you may embrace the feeling. Now, does that have carryover to the rest of your life? It totally does. It develops discipline, and it's extremely empowering because it's something that you can do that then improves your life. So it's this wonderful vehicle that does all of these things, but you don't have to love it. You just have to love yourself, and you have to use this tool to help yourself. Now, when I say love yourself, I've said this so many times on the podcast and on other shows, but it's so important that I'm going to say it again. When I say love yourself, I think people confuse that with the feeling of love, like that warm, fuzzy feeling. That's not what I'm talking about. That sometimes accompanies what I'm talking about, and it's a great feeling. But I mean in the active sense. I mean through action. So how do I love myself as an action? I do things for myself. I care for myself like somebody that I care about. Mm-hmm. And so fitness is one thing. There's lots of things that you can do to care for yourself, but fitness is one thing that you can use as a way to care for yourself or love yourself. So does that mean you're going to love fitness like I do? No, but you'll develop a relationship with fitness where you respect it, you appreciate it, and it's a tool that you have that you can use for the rest of your life to improve the quality of your life. And you have to set that expectation with most people, because I think a lot of people, they have the expectation that if they don't like love the fitness itself, like they don't have this wonderful, oh my God, it's the best thing ever feeling, that it'll never be for them. Right. That's not true. It's for everybody, but the expectation is that it's this thing that you do, that you use to care for yourself, that improves the quality of everything else. It doesn't dominate your life. It isn't your life. You're not going to work in fitness. You're not going to become a trainer, but it's this very valuable tool. Now, knowing that, and this is, I also like to communicate quite a bit, since it's not going to be your passion for the most part, then let's figure out a way to make it effective so you don't have to do it all the time. Let's figure out what works for you. How can I build a consistent relationship with this that's realistic? Take all those things into consideration. And then what happens is you develop this relationship with exercise where it's something that you do for the rest of your life, and you modify based off of what's happening in your life, how you feel, what you need. Sometimes you need stress relief. Other times you need to go in and test yourself. Sometimes you feel incredibly motivated, so it's this really hard workout. Other times you might need to just go in there just to get away from things. If you can develop that relationship with fitness, which takes time, all relationships take time. If you could start to develop that relationship with fitness, it'll be this wonderful thing that serves you. So that's the expectation that I want people to have and understand, so that they go into it, not just realistic expectations, but understanding what that good relationship is going to look and feel like.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of led me to my next question, and you might have already answered it. And you can tell me, this is what I would tell someone. Your programming is great. The MAPS programming is great. how do you get someone to stay consistent with it? Because it's one thing to have a great program or to have a workout that you know is highly effective, but to get that person to remain consistent, is there anything that you or your team, is there any kind of mindset that you set for people, or is it exactly what you said of just teaching them to learn to love themselves in the action of doing things good for them?
Yes. Okay. So just to frame this in the context of appropriate, I have to say that because you can always exercise in an inappropriate way or in a way that'll hurt yourself or that's just not right for you. So in the context of appropriate, the most effective exercise program, also in the context of forever. So because we're trying to develop this forever relationship, the number one factor that you want to consider is the one that you're going to do, the one that I'm going to do most consistently. So that's number one. So what does that mean? That means I could have a workout program over here that on paper, physiologically is just superior. It's going to give me the best results. It's going to give me great muscle and fat loss and whatever. And then I can have a workout over here that's 20% as effective. But I hate this workout and I love this workout. Guess which one is going to be more effective in the real world application, right? The one that you're going to do, right? It's like a study could come out that says if you jump into a cold lake at 4 a.m., you'll burn 50% more body fat than if you walk after dinner. But I love walking after dinner and I hate jumping in a cold lake at 4 a.m. Well, which one's going to be more effective, right? So that's the number one thing to consider. Now let's consider a few other things. There's a few other things I want to consider. Realistic. What is realistic for me for the rest of my life in terms of time commitment?
Yeah.
This is going to change depending on the context of your life. And usually if you do this right, the amount of time that you dedicate to exercise tends to improve as your relationship with exercise tends to improve. So you want to basically do more than you're doing now, and that's it. So there is no wrong answer here. So if you're doing nothing and you ask yourself, what is an amount of exercise that I can do now that I can maintain realistically for the rest of my life, knowing myself and knowing what I feel like when I'm unmotivated and all my different moods and feelings. And then start there. If it's once a week, then that's what I'm going to do. If it's 10 minutes a day, then that's what I'm going to do. And you start there. And then when that becomes consistent, when that becomes a behavior, when that kind of feels like second nature, then you can ask yourself that question again, but which, by the way, you'll probably do naturally anyway. Once you do it for a while and you stick to it, then you'll probably say, hey, how much more can I do that I also think is realistic for the rest of my life? And then you bump it from there. And so the relationship tends to develop over time. The third thing is effectiveness, because that's also something you want to consider. So I'm not saying that effectiveness is not something you don't want to consider. It's still important. It's just not as important as those other things, but it's important. So what is effectiveness? Okay, what's going to give me the most bang for my buck? So if I'm only going to dedicate 2 days a week to exercise because I'm not doing any now, and that's where I'm going to start, I want to really reap most of the benefits that I'm looking for. I want to get the best fat loss effects, the best mobility effects. I want to get the best hormone balancing effects, the best, just movement effects from it. What form of exercise is going to do that for me? And if you're able to understand those first two ones, then the third one, if this works, if this is something that you'll do, which I found a lot of people will, the answer tends to be strength training, because strength training just gives you such a tremendous bang for your buck. The effects and benefits of strength training are not from the workout that's happening itself, but rather from the adaptation process that happens from the exercise. What strength training does is it tells the body to get stronger and to build muscle, the side effects of which are a faster metabolism, which makes fat loss easier. And all of those things that I just talked about, you can get even once a week with strength training. Now, other forms of exercise, the main benefits come from the exercise while you're doing it itself, the calorie burn, in which case, if you only do it once a week or twice a week, it's very minimal effects. It's something I have to do on an everyday basis. Strength training is unique in the sense that I don't need to do a lot of it to get a lot of the benefits. So I tend to like to start people there. And then from there, we can build upon there. Now, I'm going to be quite honest, and this is for your listeners who struggle with consistency or are looking to just get started. I worked with people one-on-one. I own gyms. I manage gyms. I worked and hired trainers to work under me. So I've worked with a lot of people, both in person and by proxy through other people. So thousands of people. And it took me a long time, but after about 10 years of doing this, I got really good at getting people to develop a relationship with exercise where they were able to stay consistent on their own for the foreseeable future, forever. Okay. But here's what I got: about 2 to 3 days a week. So the most we could hope for most people for the rest of their life is about two to 3 days a week of structured exercise. So if you're watching or listening to this, then know that at some point, if you really do a good job and you average it out, you'll be exercising about 2 or 3 days a week. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do it right, you can reap tremendous benefits with 2 or 3 days a week. And especially if you stretch that out over time. And again, this is something, again, I learned as a trainer. You want to be very honest about your expectations, what I'm going to get out of this, what it's going to look like. But if we can make it efficient, effective, and enjoyable, and I can do it from the point of self-care, not self-hate, right?
Yeah.
Then my odds of success are high. If I do this in an inefficient, ineffective way, and I do it based off of self-hate, I hate the way I look, I think I'm fat, I think I'm gross, whatever, your odds of success are like almost zero. You're going to stop. You will not be consistent. You will fall off the wagon.
I was going to ask you, I've been in the fitness industry for 25 plus years. And I've worked with a lot of clients myself, and I do still to this day, especially with the hype of strength training, how important, how much highlighted it's become lately. I mean, I was teaching the step cardio classes, wouldn't touch a weight for 15 years, but really started strength training in the last probably 8 years. Huge difference. But I still have those women that come to me, they're afraid to lift weights, or they're like, okay, you know, I believe it now. I know I need to do it. What advice do you have for a female beginner just starting out? What's most important for them to keep in mind when they're just starting on their strength training journey, being a woman?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk first to the people who are afraid of strength training. And typically women, and it's less now than it was before. I mean, Melissa, you and I have been doing this for, I guess, the same amount of time. So I've been doing this just about as long as you have. And we go back 15, 20 years. Women were really afraid of touching a weight. They thought if they started lifting weights, they would, wake up the next day looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something, right? Yep. So I want to talk to now. So it's way less than before. We've really made positive strides in a positive direction with strength training in women, but there's still that stigma and the false understanding around it, or the myths around it still exist. So let me talk to that first. You will not get too big. You will not get bulky. Building muscle is a slow process. You could train like a bodybuilder for years and years and years, and what you'll probably end up looking like is sculpted. You'll get nice shape and sculpt to your body. Now, people watching may be like, hey, I've seen women on Instagram that look like they're more muscular than you are, Sal, right? So let me explain the role of genetics in this. Okay, there's a wide range of genetics when it comes to building muscle, just like there's a wide range of genetics when it comes to height. Okay, if you look at the range of genetics for height, on one end you have dwarfism, on the other end you have like NBA basketball players who are like 7 feet tall. The vast majority of people, 99% of everybody, is like in the middle, somewhere in the middle. Very, 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 very few people are on the ends. In fact, I love asking people this question: how many times in your life have you seen somebody that's 7 foot tall and you can't say, forget going to NBA game? I'm talking about everyday life. When have you ever seen anybody that's 7 feet tall?
Never.
Yeah, almost never, or once, and you remember it because it was like, oh my gosh, that person's giant. That's how rare those type of genetics are. Well, that's how rare those crazy bodybuilding genetics are. If you have them, and I mean, if you're a woman that has those genetics, you're probably the biggest, strongest person always in the room, man or woman. You're probably stronger than every dude you know, and you just crazy. Okay. So that's not you. So you're somewhere in the middle. So you strength train as much as you want. And what you're going to get is the body that you're looking for, or that you think you're going to get from doing lots of cardio or lots of aerobics. The sculpted, tight, shapely body. So that's number one. Number two, muscle is very dense, whereas body fat in comparison is not so dense. So if you were to lose 10 pounds of body fat, but gain 10 pounds of muscle, in other words, your weight stays the same on the scale, you would still be a lot smaller. So even though your body weight would be the same, you would lose roughly 1/4 of the size of your body because muscle takes up about 3/4 the size, 3/4 the space of body fat for the same amount of weight. So it's just very dense. So like if you look at a picture of a 200-pound male who's 10% body fat and 6 feet tall, or a 200-pound male who's 6 feet tall at 20% body fat, and you look at them next to each other, they look radically different. So you're not going to get too big. You're not going to get too muscular. What's going to happen is you're going to build a very sculpted, tight physique, but you're also, and here's the selling point, strength training has this wonderful effect that no other form of exercise really does or can touch, which is that it speeds up your metabolism.
You need more.
Yeah. Right. Now, why is that important? Because you want to eat more? Well, yeah, but also it makes fat loss sustainable. If you could eat twice as much as you are now and lose weight, it would be way easier, right? Than if you had to eat half as much, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, if you do this right and you use strength training right and you fuel your body properly with nutrition, which we can talk about if you want later on, but if you do it right, oftentimes, and I've seen this happen many times with clients, we'll get somebody to lose 30 pounds. And at the end of the 30-pound weight loss journey, after we've done what's called a reverse diet and all that stuff, they're eating more calories than they did when they were 30 pounds heavier. So they're lighter, leaner, they lost all this weight, all this body fat, and they're eating more. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a sustainable place to be. Yeah. And that's extremely important because food is everywhere. Mm-hmm. We do so much with food. We don't just eat to fuel our body. You know, the only people that eat that way are fitness fanatics. Most people eat for celebration or boredom or connection or just enjoyment. So because we live in a modern world where food is so abundant and so everywhere and so flavorful and so many different options and inexpensive, you want a faster metabolism, and strength training provides that. Okay, now let's talk about how to get started with strength training. The single best piece of advice, because there's a lot and we can get complex with this, but the single best piece of advice I could give somebody when it comes to starting out with strength training is to view it like a skill, not like a workout. View strength training like a skill, not like a workout. All right, what does that mean? Okay, so I'm sure you've heard this story, but I'll tell it again in case your audience hasn't heard this. I remember when this really occurred to me years ago. This was like, gosh, it had to be at least 16, 17 years ago. I was hiking up in the foothills here in Northern California, and I would do that often. I'd go up and I'd hike or whatever, and they had some nice trails. And every once in a while, a runner would pass me by, because I'm hiking, I'm not running, so somebody would run and pass me by. Now, as a trainer, it's really hard for me not to notice biomechanics. So if somebody's running or doing something, I'll look, and it's just, it's my profession. So I'll notice, oh, wow, that person's feet are pronating. Oh, wow, they're supinating. Or I see a really strong anterior pelvic tilt, or there's an asymmetrical shift that's going to hurt their knee or whatever. And I would just notice as they ran by. And I probably got passed by, it was a long hike. I would do like a 3-hour hike. And I remember at least 5 or 6 runners passed by. And then this one runner passed by, and it was like a gazelle. Like they ran so beautifully and perfectly as they ran by me. And I looked at them and I said, wow, that's amazing. And then I thought to myself and I said, there's a few things that humans evolved to do very well physically. One of them is we throw with accuracy. We do this better than any animal in the animal kingdom. I mean, a 5-year-old can throw with more accuracy than any other primate. Okay. This is part of the reason why we became apex predators. We can accurately throw things. The other thing is that we can run for distance better than almost any other animal. In fact, most anthropologists think that the way we hunted for thousands of years is we would throw a spear at an animal, wound it, and then we would just run after it until it got tired. So here we are, evolved to be able to run or trek for long, long, long distances. And yet 6 people ran by me with terrible biomechanics, all of them going to develop knee pain, all of them going to hurt their backs. And then there was that one that ran by beautifully. And then it dawned on me. The reason why all those people ran so terribly is because none of them viewed running as a skill. All of them just did it to work out. So we all stop running right around the age of 13 for some reason, 12, 13. We play when we're kids and we just stop running. And then when we're 30, we're like, hey, I need to get in shape. We put on running shoes and we just go until we're tired.
Yeah.
And we completely ignore the fact that running is a skill. So if those people had approached running and instead of saying, I'm going to run till I'm tired, because try and learn a skill while you're exhausted. Whatever technique you're trying to apply when you're super exhausted is going to suck no matter what, especially if it's a new technique, right? So if they had approached it like a skill, all of them would have given themselves time and eventually learned how to run properly. Well, this is what this dawned on me with strength training. People go to the gym and instead of saying, I'm going to learn and then perfect the skill of squatting, they think, I'm going to hammer my legs. I'm going to get my legs really sore. Or instead of thinking, I'm going to perfect the skill of a row or the skill of an overhead press, they think, oh, I'm going to make my back sore or really hit my shoulders. Okay. We view exercises not as skills, but just as ways to target body parts. The truth is, if you look at the value that an exercise, that a strength training exercise, especially strength training, that a strength training exercise can provide you, the value is tremendous when you have good technique and good form and good control. When your technique, form, and control are poor, the value that the exercise can bring you is very low and your injury risk is through the roof. So you do a deadlift with great technique, great connection, great form, and you're going to get great results. You do a deadlift with bad technique, bad form, bad control, and it's not going to do much for you and it'll probably hurt you. So if you approach strength training like a skill and you approach your exercises and you go to the gym and you say, I'm going to practice these 4 exercises, you'll get way better results than if you go in and think, I'm going to go make myself sore and beat myself up. So that's the single best piece of advice I could give. Go to the gym, pick 4 exercises and perfect the skill of them and practice them. Don't train them, but practice them. And that'll just get you so far.
8-hour abs? That sounds like a dream, right? What if I told you you could work on those abs while you dream? It's not too good to be true, I promise. It's something I discovered almost accidentally that gives you incredible results with minimal effort. The idea behind this is actually in what you're not doing. By giving your digestion time to rest, you allow your body to tap into its fat stores, hence working on that 6-pack while you sleep. All you have to do is eat within an 8-hour window and leave the rest up to your body. I wrote the 8-hour abs diet back in 2014 to help people learn about the importance of meal timing. Intermittent fasting has been a huge part in helping me stay in the shape that I am. For me, intermittent fasting means eating in an 8-hour window, and I'll give you my insight on it in this free ebook. With proper meal timing, you will not only look better, but you're going to feel better too. So learn more by visiting melissamadeonline.com/ebooks and get your free copy of the 8-hour abs diet today.
I love that. And I don't have them in front of me. You'll have to forgive me, but I got the maps that I believe was the mobility one where you had people go through. My husband is an extremist. He's got a tattoo that says more danger, more fun. He's broken every bone in his body. And so the mobility is not there, to say the least. And so I went through the exercises myself, going up against the wall and checking my alignment. And it's okay. I was like, okay, this isn't as good, of course, as I would love it to be. But then to put my husband through that was, wow.
Yeah.
So, but what I wanted to ask you is, which MAPS program would you recommend for the beginning female? If they're to go, to your website or to look at all, because you have quite a few.
Yeah.
Is there one particular that you think would be best for them to start at?
Yeah, if you're total beginner, then I would go MAPS Starter. MAPS Starter is it's all the programs of strength training, but MAPS Starter is a great place to get started. If you have decent mobility, some athletic ability, like you could squat, you could press, you could row, you could lunge with decent form and technique, then you can go to MAPS Anabolic and you could start in pre-phase and do pre-phase for about 4 to 6 weeks and then move to phase 1 and so on. We also have MAPS resistance, which is kind of in between those two. But if you're like a total beginner and you don't have tons of athletic ability, or you haven't done sports for a while, or you haven't done anything for a while, then MAPS Starter would be the perfect place to start.
Okay. So I am, I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I've been studying nutrition for a really long time. And I love your simplicity around nutrition and its importance. So I wanted to ask you, number one, I think I read somewhere that you had said that you were negatively impacted by supplements, and it kind of made you switch to be more about like gut health and your overall health versus, looking for outside sources for that health. Can you share that a little bit?
Yeah. So I got into fitness personally. I was a much better trainer for my clients than I was for myself, which, by the way, this tends to be true for most trainers, I think, especially when we get started.
Yeah.
But I got into fitness personally because I had some body image issues and I was insecure, which I think a lot of people start working out for the same reasons. But it did drive me to pursue things that didn't serve me best. So I overtrained. I took a lot of supplements. I would force feed myself. I was a skinny kid, so I'd want to, put on size and weight. And I got away with it for a while and definitely ignored some of my body's signals until my body's signals got so loud that I could no longer ignore them. So in my early 30s, I developed some pretty severe gut health issues where at one point I thought I might have Crohn's disease, where I was just, losing weight, losing strength. I could no longer be the meathead trainer. And I had to look at myself like I would look at my clients. I had to kind of step outside myself and say, okay, it's time to care for myself the way that I care for my clients. Luckily, at the time, I owned a wellness studio. And in my studio, we had personal trainers. And then I also had gut health specialists, body work specialists. I had meditation, acupuncture in there. And although I didn't understand those modalities, I at least valued them for my clients. Okay. So there I was, desperate. And I took the gut health specialists and the body work specialists, meditation, specialists, and I sat down with them and I said, I can't figure this out. I'll do whatever you guys tell me. And so I had to completely change my approach. And I had to, at the time, completely ignore how I looked. I had to completely ignore the aesthetics, what I saw in the mirror, because it was so triggering for me. So I focused entirely on health and how I felt. And I knew that was really the only way to do it. And I was desperate. So I did. And I did some gut testing. I found all these food intolerances. I had to treat myself for SIBO. I had to radically change my workouts. I had to, stop taking supplements that were really not serving me. And over the course of that year, I definitely improved my health. I was able to solve a lot of these issues. And at the end of the year, there was a moment where I actually paid attention to what was in front of me in the mirror. And I had this crazy realization that I looked better than I did when I focused on my appearance. And then I thought to myself, wow, this is so obvious. This is so obvious to me for my clients, but it wasn't obvious for myself, that if I'm healthy, I'm going to look good. So it really did shift and mold. It really molded the voice that you hear on my podcast now. I talk about this so much because of the personal experience I had through this. So this is how I would train and coach people is, you want to look good, you want to look lean, you want to look fit. If we chase health, you'll get that.
Yeah.
If we chase those things, you'll eventually sacrifice your health for them, and then you'll get none of it.
Yeah. You'll move backwards. You won't not only stay stagnant, you'll move backwards in that. I start school again next week to work on gut healing, because I just think right now, not fake foods, but the foods that we have out there that are not whole foods, and the healthy protein is so big right now, all of the protein foods that don't serve your gut, and how important the diversity of your gut is and all that. And I just absolutely loved hearing how once you realize if you take care of the insides, everything on the outside looks great as well, which leads me to ask, and I don't know if these two are separate or if you would kind of put them together. but being big into nutrition, can you share your thoughts on like nutrition for, great fat loss and then nutrition for great metabolism? Would you separate those two, or would the way that you eat, are they kind of the same thing?
No, same thing. Because you want a roaring metabolism, because that makes weight loss much more sustainable. So again, if you could lose 30 pounds eating 2,000 calories a day versus eating 1,000 calories a day, like which one is going to be more sustainable living in the modern world, right? So we want to approach weight loss from a metabolism boosting standpoint almost always, because that's what makes it sustainable. Also, look, the amount of calories you burn while you work out is a fraction of the calories that you burn throughout the day. It's your basal metabolic rate that burns most of your calories. That's even if you work out every day.
Yeah.
Even if you exercise every single day, it's not going to make a huge dent. Plus, and here's where it gets really weird. If you just do a lot of activity, there's health benefits to being active every day. So I don't want to discredit that. But from a calorie burning perspective, your body learns how to become more efficient, and then it just balances it out anyway. There's this, and I quote this study in my book. Scientists went to northern Tanzania to study, a modern hunter-gatherer tribe, the Hadza tribe.
Yeah.
And they went and they tested their metabolisms. How many calories are these people burning every day? And they thought they would see that they would burn a ton of calories because, they're hunter-gatherers. They don't have electronics. They're not sitting on couches. They're hunting animals. They're running after them. Like I said earlier, they chase them down. They're gathering. They're finding water. They're way more active than the average person. And yet what they found was that they burned roughly the same amount of calories. And, you think, well, how is that even possible? Well, if our bodies evolved to not do that, we wouldn't be here, because it's so hard to find 5,000 calories a day in nature. You'd be lucky if you found 1,000 calories a day in nature. So just moving, there's health benefits to it, but in terms of the calorie burn you get from it, that's kind of short-lived. Eventually your body adapts, and then you're not burning. It's not making that big of a difference. You still get the health benefits, but the calorie burn benefits are gone. Now that begs the question, well, then how do I get my metabolism speed up? Well, you tell your body to build muscle, and you fuel it to build muscle. Muscle burns more calories, but also sending the signal to build more muscle burns more calories. Also, not underfeeding yourself teaches your body to burn more calories. So boosting metabolism, or working with your metabolism, is the fat loss strategy you want to approach. Don't approach it without approaching metabolism. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in this place where you lose weight, metabolism adjusts, slows down. Got to cut my calories more, got to work out more. Plateaued again. And then you're in this place where you're like, I'm eating barely any food. I'm exercising all the time. I still have 15 pounds to lose. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you're back to where you were before, or worse.
Very controversial subject, because I opened up my emails this morning and I had one email where someone was talking about the myth of calories in, calories out. And I shit you not, 3 minutes earlier, I was sent an email from a trainer saying, I hate it when people say calories in, calories out is a myth, because it's factual.
Yes.
Where do you stand in that arena?
No. First off, it is simplified, but it is a fact. So it's a law of physics. It's the second rule of thermodynamics. Which is energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Okay, what does that mean? Calories are just representative of energy. So for my body to burn its own tissue, and that can come from a lot of places, but let's just say body fat. For my body to burn or utilize the energy to get rid of this tissue means that it needs to be in a calorie deficit to do so. Meaning, if I'm burning 2,000 calories a day and I eat 2,000 calories a day, my body's not going to burn calories from itself. What's it going to do with them? It doesn't happen. So I'd have to take in less calories to make that happen. Now, here's why it's oversimplified. The metabolism is very complex. And here's why you get the argument of calories in versus calories out. Doesn't matter, because it's not a stationary number. That calorie burn side of the equation changes as your metabolism changes, as hormones change, as you build muscle or lose sleep or gain sleep, or you're under stress or whatever. So even though building muscle burns calories, or having more muscle burns more calories, there's a range of calories that your body will burn with the same lean body mass. You can become more or less efficient with calorie burn. Your body, your mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cells, can decide to become more wasteful or more thrifty with calories. Now, what tells it to do so? Lots of things. Stress is a great example. You place your body under a tremendous amount of stress, and your body tries to protect itself by becoming less efficient with calories, right? Trying to become thrifty with calories, store those calories, right? Hormones can drive this as well. If you're a man with low testosterone, well, that'll tell you to store more body fat and to have less muscle. If you have estrogen or progesterone imbalances or growth hormone or insulin insensitivity, that can change the calories outside of that equation. So that's why the, calories in versus calories out side, is a myth, people. I can see where they're coming from, but they're missing the boat. It's not a myth, it's real. However, it is complex and it is affected by lots of different things.
So do you have anything to add to if someone is really, we're in the beginning of March as we record this, spring break is coming, summer's coming. And of course, people are really heightened to the idea of, losing a little bit of maybe winter weight. When it comes to nutrition, are there any foods or is there advice that you would give to really hone in when it comes to nutrition to help them lose weight besides building muscle for the metabolism and all that stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So protein's pretty awesome for this. So, and there's an individual variance here. Okay. So I'm going to speak generally, but a high protein diet is very beneficial for fat loss for a few different reasons. One, probably the most important, is it's the highest satiety producing of the three macronutrients, the three main components of food: proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Protein really controls appetite the best by far. Okay. So a high protein diet, you tend to eat less when you eat high protein. That's just a fact. So if you could take a 1,500 calorie diet that's low protein or a 1,500 calorie diet that's high protein, the high protein version of it will make you feel way more satisfied. And hunger control is like the key when it comes to trying to, eat appropriately or eat for weight loss. Is that hunger? That's the hardest thing that you got to battle. Number two, high protein diet is beneficial for muscle building, which we talked about earlier, that metabolism boosting, all that stuff. Number three, a high protein diet helps control blood sugar and insulin sensitivity quite well. Why is that important? Well, because wide variations in blood sugar or insulin insensitivity can change the way you feel, and your behaviors drive the way you eat. So if I get sugar highs, sugar lows, then I'm going to be irritable or fatigued, or I'm going to have cravings. So a high protein diet is really important. And so that would be the first thing that I would tell people is aim for high protein. So what's high protein? For most people, that's about 0.6 to close to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight in a normal weight individual. So if you're 140 pounds, you want about 110 to 140 grams of protein a day. Yeah. And eat that first. Eat it first in your meal. So you want to prioritize it. The second thing that I'll say, and this one's huge, is avoid heavily processed foods. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not because they're inherently unhealthy or inherently, fattening or whatever, although most of them are less healthy than whole natural foods, but rather because they are engineered to make you overeat. They've really done a good job of making these foods so hyper palatable that you'll want to eat more of them, and it's harder to control your portions. And the studies on heavily processed foods are remarkable. The average person would eat about 600 more calories a day if their diet was comprised of heavily processed foods versus whole natural. 600 calories, meaning they'll feel the same level of satiety with 600 less calories of whole natural foods. So when I would tell people, hit your protein targets and avoid heavily processed foods, they would lose weight because they would naturally eat less just through doing those two things.
So being in the industry as long as you have, and undisputably being quite the expert in the field, where do you see the fitness industry going? Do you see any trends coming up or anything changing over the next several years compared to where it is now? Anything you see coming?
Yeah, so we'll start with the negative. I'm noticing that health and fitness is becoming more and more politicized, which is very strange. So diets have now become politicized. Now, there was always a religious component to diets where, this person's, eats low carb, this person eats high carb, this person eats this way, that way, and people would get all weird about their diets. But all of a sudden now it's like, if you eat this way, then you hate the environment, or if you eat this way, you're not a good person, or whatever. Very strange.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the best thing for the world is healthy people. Healthy people innovate the best. We're the most productive. We're the happiest. We're more likely to be kind to each other. So you should eat in a way that makes you healthy, whatever that means. And there could be a wide range when it comes to diet. Some people do better eating one way. Other people eat better. There's general truths, but there's a lot of variations in there. So that's the negative, but I'm going to go the positive with the fitness industry. I just talked about this article in a podcast we recorded today. It was in CNN Business, and they were interviewing major big box gym chains. Okay, so these like Planet Fitness, 24 Hour Fitness, Crunch Fitness. And what they're saying in these, what these big box gyms are saying is that they're taking space away from cardio machines and devoting it more to free weights and open space for things like sled driving and deadlifting and squatting. This is great.
Yeah.
This is great because strength training for the average person is so much more effective for all those reasons that I talked about earlier, that this is a great trend. The strength training is now it's moving towards becoming mainstream. And then the third thing I'll say that was also very positive, I already talked about it earlier, was that meta-analysis that came out where they're going to start reviewing exercise as a first line treatment for depression and anxiety. And this is a big deal because depression and anxiety has been on the rise for a long time, especially among kids and teenagers. It's been on the rise. So I'm so happy about that because it's going to be great. We're not prescribing them drugs right out the gates. We're going to say, hey, let's get you moving, because now we know it's as good or better. So I see the positives are more strength training, more people are going to do strength training, resistance training, and exercise is going to be recommended more as a way to treat mental health.
Yeah, I actually just read an article this morning about exercise for autism as well. So
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
very exciting. So Sal, unlimited money, unlimited resource. You see how our trend of obesity and type 2 diabetes and metabolic disorders are on the rise. You have everything at your disposal.
Yeah.
How would you tackle that? What would be your first thing that you would do to help in this trend or the direction that we're going?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. First thing I would do, if you said unlimited money, because this would be so expensive, is I would redesign cities.
Okay.
So if you look at the obesity rates in people who live in cities that were built before cars became, or the automobile became just so common, people tend to be less obese because those cities are designed. It's inconvenient to own a car or drive a car all the time when you live in San Francisco or New York City or whatever. So people just walk a lot. When the car became super common, we started to create cities where we had suburbs and then we had shopping centers. And so in order to do anything, you had to have a car. So if we redesign cities, it would force people, it would become a part of our culture. I don't want to use the word force, but it would become a part of our culture to move more. And I think that would make a pretty big impact. The second thing I would do, and I'm not a big regulation person, okay, except when it comes to children. This is where I start to say, okay, there might need to put some governing here, is I would ban advertising foods to children. I would say you can't advertise food to kids anymore. You can advertise to their parents, but not to the kids, because I feel like that's made a pretty negative impact on us. And then lastly, I would make activity something that kids do on a daily basis in their classrooms, not just PE and recess, but where every, 30 minutes there are movement breaks and the teachers are coached on what that looks like. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be, and if anything, we would see improvements in academic scores. So those would be the three things off the top of my head. But the big one would be the redesigning cities.
I love that. And they're sort of doing that now, but not in the positive way. I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 27-year-old son. And I know your dad as well. I know you have a son. I don't know if you have more than a son.
I got 4 kids, so I have
4 kids.
Yeah,
okay.
2 boys and 2 girls.
Okay, so you can totally relate to this, but I remember, they were raised in Hawaii, lucky little kids. And back in the day when there were DVDs, I would have them watch DVDs of cartoons. And the minute that I switched from DVDs of them watching, Barney and all that stuff to where those commercials came on, the McDonald's commercials, all of the toys completely changed the way that they wanted to eat, because they would see these commercials and we would drive and see the golden arches and stuff. And so I resonate so much with that. It was such an abrupt shift for me on how much I could quote unquote control what my kids ate and what they enjoyed, because they saw the commercials and they saw all the things that they were missing out on that otherwise they had no idea.
Look, I used to be, before I became a parent, I used to say, who cares? It's the parent's job anyway. But I'm a parent now of 4 kids. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah.
And we're constantly fighting uphill battles. Being a parent is really hard. So, it's like you're constantly fighting that battle. Then you're exhausted. Then you're tired. You're busy. You got to pay your bills. And it just makes it more challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sal, I don't want to take any more of your time. I have one more question for you. Like I mentioned in the beginning, when I take my walks, I've been walking, I've probably missed 5 days ever since June. I've been walking every single day, and it has been such a huge game changer for me, not only physically, but mentally, because it gives me the opportunity to listen to podcasts, which yours is always the top. And even we don't have to discuss this one, but the one you just released where you talked about the connection between lifting the weights and actually really putting that thought process into the muscle when you exercise was fascinating. So I enjoy them very much, but I would love to know where you spend your time getting inspired. Where do you go?
Oh, wow. The same thing. Exercise always does it for me. It's just, this is personal for me, but I tend to be pretty uncomfortable in my own skin. And I exercise, or when I work out, that's the one time I'm in my body. It's when I'm most present. Besides when I'm with my kids, I find myself, I can do that when I'm with my kids. But so when I'm present and I'm in my body, I think it allows me to be more creative and inspired. And so I tend to do a lot of my writing and a lot of my ideas happen when I work out in the morning. I work out around 6:37 a.m. So that's usually, and I'll come to work here and I'll typically have notes of, things I want to talk about. So it's when I'm active.
Yeah. Do you have a mentor?
Ooh, I have a lot. My partners mentor me all. I don't think they know they're mentoring me, but I learn a lot from them. They're great men. I was really blessed to have the business partners I have. Arthur Brooks is another person that I watch and listen to. He's one of the most intelligent, kindest people I've ever met. And I tell him all the time he's my mentor. And he's like, what do you mean? I don't even do anything. I'm like, I just watch and listen to your stuff. And, every once in a while he answers my text. So Arthur Brooks would be the other person. And if you want to listen to somebody that's just a wonderful, good person that talks about how to be a better person, his content is just, it's exceptional.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you. Someone new. I appreciate it. So, like I said, someone has to live under a rock if they don't know where to find you, but can you do me a favor of sharing all the places? And maybe you can highlight this. I actually envy you a little bit. You're not on Instagram.
No, I'm back on Instagram. I got kicked off.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did get kicked off there for a little bit. So I'm on Instagram again, Mind Pump Di Stefano. You can find the podcast as Mind Pump. And those would be the two, but the podcast is the best. And we put it on YouTube, and then you can also find us on podcast apps.
Yeah. Even though I'm walking, I listen, but I watch the YouTube videos because like I said, you guys, you're three very attractive men, but you're also, your energy, you can just feel it when you watch. So for me, I enjoy the YouTube videos very much, but I know that you're also on that podcast when I can't watch something, but usually I'm sitting here walking with the phone in front of my face, listening and watching at the same time, because I really truly do enjoy it. And I wanted to thank you so much for all of your content, for inspiring us other fitness professionals, for being on this podcast. It really, really means the world to me. And I just wish you continued success with both your family, your personal life, and your business, because you're making big changes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Melissa. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you guys, as always, I hope that you wake up feeling prepared and that you go to bed feeling proud. Have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.